Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, the map I want to start off with today shows you the number of days since May 1st where we've recorded temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you may need to pause the video and zoom in and take a closer look, but what I want to illustrate here is where we're about to experience the majority of the heat over the next month is really not going to be along the East Coast. It's going to be right here tucked away where it's been. And that heat's going to extend pretty far to the north as well. And parts of the Corn Belt are going to be seeing routine days where temperatures are going to be getting well above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, when you look at this, we can see that across the state of North Carolina, we have been averaging anywhere between 6 to 15 days across the state of having temperatures. Again, this is from May 1st to the 4th of July, where our temperatures have been above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, just to show you something, where I am today, right up here in the North Woods of Wisconsin, enjoying a family vacation, we've had some extremely hot days. And I want to talk to you about why that is, what's going on with this pattern bringing all this heat to the mid part of the country. But if you've never seen me, I would like to at least show you a picture here kind of at my best, right? This was July the 3rd, went out fishing. I pulled in this 32-inch Northern, had a great time fishing with my dad, my son, and my brother-in-law, and we were having a great time here in the boat. Okay, enough about me. Let's get back to the weather here. From June 1st to July the 6th, you're now looking at a map that shows you average temperature ranks by climate district. Now, the ranking is on the 128 years worth of data we have across the United States. And where I am, you can see that, well, stretching from all the way down here, Arizona, clear up here to the Great Lakes states, things have been very warm in this corridor. And it's been over here in the southeast, it's been over here on the east coast and in the northwest where temperatures have been cool. We've got to talk about why that is, because when you come over here to the state of North Carolina, we're definitely sitting on the cooler side of things. In other words, the bigger the number, the closer you are to the coldest time periods, whereas the closer you are to number one, it's the hottest. When we think about precipitation, I've always joked with some of my farmer friends in North Carolina because we say, we're always a week away from drought, right? And what you've got here is just looking at the last 14 days of precipitation expressed as 8% of normal. So more than 2 weeks ago, when that cutoff low sat over parts of North Carolina and Virginia, dumping tremendous amounts of rain, well, since then, parts of, in and around Raleigh, right in the middle part of the state, we've gone over to a much drier pattern. But the bigger questions are how dry. For example, when you look at this map, you see that there's a significant portion of North Carolina that over the last 2 weeks has received less than half of its normal rainfall. But what does our soil moisture still look like? We're going to look at that in just a few moments. Before I leave this, though, I want you to understand that this map here I designed to show you where the upcoming heat stress, for example, in the southern plains, moving through the Corn Belt, where that heat stress is really going to be causing problems with yield because we're moving into corn pollination time period in the midsection of the United States, and this is going to be critical to see who gets the rains and who does not get the rains. Now, what we expect in terms of rain is going to be much like what you've seen recently around the whole of the country, especially here in North Carolina. Over the weekend, we saw just some widely scattered showers and thunderstorms move across the state. You can even see this kind of sun up to sundown yesterday on the 5th with the storms that just popped in the afternoon heat. Ready? Here they go right there, just blown up across the state. If you were underneath one of these storms, oh, fantastic. You got quite a bit of precipitation out of it. But if you were missed, it was just a hot and muggy day that we end up getting. So we're going to see a lot more of this in the near term. And the reason why is actually illustrated in this animation. Sitting right here over basically Lake Michigan, the flow of the atmosphere is like this around a high pressure cell. And therefore, all along its periphery, here and here, there will be a lot of thunderstorm activity. And we're going to watch very carefully a system that's moving here out of parts of eastern Texas and Louisiana that's slowly going to track over here toward the Carolinas, really increasing our rain chances toward the end of this week and weekend. So, what's going to be pushing that along? Well, it's not the jet stream. The jet stream is way far to the north, and we need to talk about why it is so far to the north, because we have really stagnant flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere over that region I just drew in the circle. The troughs have been out west. We've been building the jet stream farther and farther to the north, and I want to explain to you briefly why that is, okay? So we're going to go back and look at the temperatures throughout the entire month of June. We were smashing records, as I reported to you, here in parts of Siberia. Very warm in the North Pacific, warm over parts of Scandinavia. And as a result, we've warmed up a significant portion of the Northern Hemisphere. In addition to that, we've melted a lot of sea ice over the Arctic. For example, right now in the Arctic, they have the third lowest sea ice, and in the sea ice just north of Siberia, it is currently the lowest concentration, or lowest extent, that they've had. Now, at the same time that's been going on, take a look at what our ocean temperature patterns have been doing. Let me label a few things here for you. Right here in this area, very warm ocean temperatures. We've slightly cooled off along the coast, the Pacific Northwest, then coming off of California and the Baja here. But our La Nina just can't get itself going. Every time our temperatures come down here into La Nina territory, they bounce right back up to average. And so at this point, we have this struggling La Nina. It is very rare, though, just to make a point here, to have a La Nina when there's warm water here and warm water on this side of the Indian Ocean with cooler water here, which is kind of what we've got. So the atmosphere is really not responding well in a manner which I would call constructively interfering. That's where kind of everything is adding up and working together to give us one pattern or another. Right now, it's very deconstructive. But one of the effects of that has been to put a lot of heat in the northern hemisphere, which has shoved the jet stream north. Now, will El Nino, La Nina start to get going? Well, especially will La Nina? We'll take a look at this. This graph over here shows you something called the Southern Oscillation Index, and I'm drawing a line at the 0 value. Now remember, as you go down on this figure, when you get anything below -7, you're talking about El Nino. When you're way up here off this chart at +7, we're talking about La Nina. So the atmosphere has actually been in a base state, behaving like El Nino for a while in June. But you can see how the values recently are starting to increase. And with these faster trade winds, which come out of the east and blow to the west across the Central Pacific, we could be seeing the atmosphere go back over into more of a La Nina state. So you ask yourself, well, I see the cool water, why not La Nina? There's other circulations, maybe less popular in the news media, but one of the big ones is, I talked to you about it a lot, is the MJO. The MJO came over here in May, did this, and then just stopped here June 1st and has only moved inside phase 1 and 2 since the beginning of June. Where is that? That's where Africa is, okay? Phase 1 is in Eastern Africa. Phase 8 in the Central Pacific. Now, we are seeing over the next 15 days, MJO is not going to move. It's going to stay in place. But should it come out of phase 2 and start to get on the move, that could completely dislodge this pattern. But that may not happen until we get maybe to the end of July, and maybe not even, it may be into the beginning of August before we start to see this pole pattern begin to shake down. Now, let me put it all together for you here. This map you're looking at over there on the left, well, the graphic on the left, shows you something called atmospheric angular momentum. It's basically a way of us trying to understand how fast the atmosphere is moving with respect to itself, normal, okay? And we noticed that throughout the month of June, we lost a lot of momentum in the tropics between 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south. Why? The MJO stalled out. We couldn't get La Nina going, so everything just stalled out in the tropics. That loss of momentum, though, has changed the way the atmosphere is able to move in the outside of the tropics, in the extratropics, in the mid-latitudes. And there's no good transport of that energy momentum right now out of the tropics. So things are starting to slow down, and they're starting to get bunched up a little bit. And that could be critical to understanding the upcoming temperature and precipitation patterns. So before we talk about them, let's assess our drought situation. There's drought in the eastern Corn Belt. There is drought in the south central plains, which we expect to expand. Drought here in the northern plains is getting better, and we've seen no change in the northwest and a little bit of improvement in the northeast. But in the Carolinas, even though we had a drier last couple of weeks, we're still not in drought by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, we still, according to the calculated soil moisture anomaly maps, have an excess of about about a half inch upwards to an inch of excess water in the soil. And you know that some of your local rivers and streams are still flooding. Okay, this week, what are we expecting? Well, much of the days this week we have a general thunderstorm risk. I'm circling the next 3 days. You see how we're in that gray shading? Just a general pop-up thunderstorm risk, which you're all very familiar with. That even carries into the weekend. So we see at the end of this week, Thursday and Friday, the last two maps I showed, all of the main frontal boundaries on which we could get severe weather are to the north. But you've probably looked at your local weather app, you've probably listened to the news, and you realize you've got a wet pattern that's coming toward us. Where is that coming from? It's right here. There is going to be, throughout much of this week, a high-pressure cell that will be in place. And to its south, there's a boundary. And we're going to see low pressure developing on that boundary. And that low is going to slowly move toward the Carolinas before getting out here into open ocean and really taking off, potentially becoming another tropical system. That's your first shot. The second shot is there's a front that's going to be slowly moving through here over the weekend, increasing rain chances. But it's this low that's going to start off over in Texas and Louisiana, moving over toward us, that's going to be increasing the precipitation. So as you watch here, we're now getting into Tuesday afternoon and evening, working our way into Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon and evening, now getting into Thursday. And what do you notice? You can see the buildup of precipitation that initially starts in Texas and moves over there toward the Carolinas, and then the front at the end of it that sweeps through and brings in maybe a slight bit of cooler weather, but also increased chances of precipitation. European model, by the time we get to this time next Monday, has got much of the state picking up anywhere between 3/4 of an inch and upwards of 3 inches of rainfall should we get under some of the heavier bands of showers and storms that will be rolling through with this next system. So I'd like to show it to you. We're going to straight to the European model, start this one off, and see the timing of this precipitation. Let's step you back. Ready? So Monday afternoon and evening, you're just going to see light green shading showing up here. This is the hit or miss showers and thunderstorms that are across North Carolina. You can see that stretching all the way back to Texas where that boundary sits. Remember, it's sitting here around this high. Right there is where the storms are really going to start to fire. Going from there into the morning hours on Tuesday afternoon and evening, now we start to increase our precipitation chances from about 30% today to generally about 50% once we get here into the day on Tuesday. Working our way then to the overnight hours on Tuesday into Wednesday morning. That's when the low begins to take shape and our precipitation chances go up again middle of the week. So there it is right here. This is the low that we're going to be watching. This is Wednesday afternoon and evening. Now getting ourselves into Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening. And you can see the low still sitting and spinning here off the coast. Now at this particular point, it's the wettest conditions are going to be off to the east of this. So we could get toward the end of the week much lower probabilities of rainfall. But still, the atmosphere is going to be conducive to making those showers and storms. As we work into Friday morning, afternoon, and evening, the low slowly moves up the coast as the front sweeps through the Corn Belt Friday evening and gets over to us in the Carolinas by Saturday evening right there. So you can even see the frontal boundary here in the kink of the isobars. So we're going to watch out for that as we work our way toward the weekend. What's going on after that? Well, we need to look to the upper levels of the atmosphere because as that front sweeps through, look at the cooler weather it brings in this trough while the ridge retreats back to the west. So does it stay there? Well, as we get out here to July the 16th, the flow pattern of the atmosphere is doing something like this, with the big ridge back here to the west and flow generally coming like this around that ridge. Now, with that northwest flow coming around that ridge, the majority of the heat's going to stay to our west. But as I take you all the way out to the 20th, we just see that the jet stream position is staying very far to the north, which means we will probably go back over to a hotter summer pattern here with time. Certainly, with that ridge in place here in week 2, I have the GFS over there on the left, the European on the right. No model is going to be advertising heavy precipitation or more precipitation than normal given the presence of that ridge in the ensemble forecast, which is what I just showed you. What I would venture a guess to say here is that as we look out at the week 2 pattern, knowing if the ridge is going to be here or will it be sliding back to the west, that difference will change the precipitation pattern across North and South Carolina, which means stay tuned to next week's update to understand what kind of pattern we'll be in as we move our way toward the middle and end of the month of July. Now let's talk temperatures next. We're going to start off here on Monday with our high temperatures in the numbers, and our color coding represents the difference from normal. So this is pretty much bang on normal here in parts of North Carolina for the day on Monday. As we play things through, we have a cooler day on Tuesday as the scattered showers and storms, remember, spread into this area. As we go from Tuesday into Wednesday, much of the same. A lot of highs in the low to mid 80s. And then getting into Thursday, the same. And then Friday is when that low finally starts to kick itself off the coast and we go back over toward normal temperatures. When we get back to those normal temperatures here by the weekend, look at the scorching heat in the south central plains where that ridge will again set up. Saturday's high temperatures in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And even as we get our way into Sunday, we're talking a lot of triple-digit heat there. Whereas we over here in the Carolinas will be just returning back to normal. In the 6 to 10 day time period, remember, this is when that trough digs in like this, we go back over to normal temperature pattern, both in the GFS, which is the one I drew on, and the European over there on the right. But as the jet stream again retreats north and flattens out, we could go over mid-month to a bit of a warmer bias here in parts of the southeast. Nothing like the warm bias in the Great Lakes states or the central plains of the U.S., where I expect triple-digit heat in the central plains to be a persistent feature throughout the month of July. So let's look longer term here as we wrap up our forecast video. The end of this month, so in other words, the map you're looking at here is from July 24th through July 31st, wants to take the ridge and send it way back west. This model has attempted to do that, and yes, it's the best model in the world, but it's attempted to do this several times in May, June, and early July. So will it be able to do it? I doubt it. I think we're going to keep the pattern over to what it's been. Now, thankfully, that doesn't affect North Carolina and the southeast coast very much. It's a much bigger impact on the central plains and the Great Lakes states. And it will be critical to see if it doesn't, all of this you see in here, which would be kind of life-saving rains for the Corn Belt, those rains won't materialize. And if they don't, I imagine we'll see quite a bit of movement in the markets, especially for corn and soybeans. So everyone that's listening to me right now, we need to be watching this pattern carefully at the end of this month. The latest outlook for the month of August in terms of temperatures right now favors a lot of very warm conditions stretching from Texas to the Great Lakes once again. We're anticipating near average temperatures on either side of that heat, and of course that includes the Carolinas. But one thing I was a bit surprised to see is that despite all that dry and dusty air we keep talking about coming off the Sahara, the latest outlook for August, September, and October keeps things very wet in through this area due to tropical activity. It also keeps the Bermuda High way out here, spinning like this, which means we could have a lot of systems that curl around and impact the Carolinas as we go into August, September, and October. Currently, you're watching the low we've already talked about. Edouard is now the 5th named tropical system of the year, and incidentally, since we've been keeping records, this is the fastest we've ever gotten to the 5th letter in the name list, second place being 2005. And we are watching something off the Lesser Antilles, but the National Hurricane Center is giving it a very low probability. So what's going to affect this? Well, that developing La Nina. It reduces wind shear over the Atlantic. And if it does that, we could really get this active pattern going. But certainly the latest European long-range forecast wants to keep an active hurricane season. All right? So we'll keep you updated. Look forward to giving you another update next week when we have a better handle on this pattern. I'll also be filling you in on the new long-range updates from the National Multi-Model Ensemble. But I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you then. Thank you.